I'll take it. Joan, thank you very much for that introduction. And it's so great to be talking to Seven Seas Cruising Association fellow members and so many sailors that are thinking and planning to go south this year and next year. The overview for today, because it's the title of our presentation, is Sailing from the U.S. to the Caribbean During COVID and Departure Options for the Amateur Cruiser. So we've done some pre-taping as well. So we're going to have some video from Mark Soares in Bermuda explaining their COVID procedures. Then we have three people down in St. Martin, the Minister of Tourism, the President of the Marine Trades Association, and also the head of IGY Marina at Ile de Sol, who'll talk about COVID down there. Then we'll talk about the different departure options from the East Coast and crew sizes and how this year is different.
There we go. There we go.
And then, of course, we'll have information about other ports of arrival in the Caribbean besides Bermuda and St. Martin. That'll be mainly David, maybe a little help from Joan. So, David, if you're ready to cue up that first video from Bermuda and Mark Soares, we're ready when you are. It's great having you with us again this year. Besides the normal people getting boats ready, having to worry about the weather, we have COVID on top of everything. And I know you're going to explain to everybody, but I just want to start off by commending you in Bermuda for having such good protocols in place, how you're going to proceed this year with boats coming into Bermuda and passing through on the sail south this year.
And Bermuda's been working on protocols right since the beginning of this whole thing to try and clear how yachts can proceed to Bermuda. There was a certain point where the port was closed. The port is now open. But there are protocols in place. The main thing is that if you're planning to come to Bermuda and spend some time and you want to get off the boat, you have to get a pre-test prior to leaving. And that requirement has changed a few times. The requirement now is that it's got to be that you have to have a test that's been taken within 7 days of departure from your last port. Okay, the day of the test is day 0. It used to be that it was 7 days prior to arrival, but obviously coming on a yacht, that's not so easy. So the test must be performed by an accredited lab. It has to be a PCR test, and you have to have a copy of that negative result. Once you've taken the test and you've got a negative result, you have to apply for what's called a travel authorization 7 days prior to your departure to Bermuda. It really should be done by the individuals on board the vessel, theoretically, and you do have to upload a negative result. There is a cost involved. It's $75, but that does include the price of all testing in Bermuda. So it's really not too bad. It does accept credit cards, and it all must be done online. And as you said, I'm sure we can provide a link and also additional information of how to proceed with that. Once you've got your travel authorization and you're heading towards Bermuda, you can actually send copies of the results to Bermuda Radio. On the arrival, you follow the regular procedures, and essentially you're in quarantine until you receive the results of your first test. You will be tested on arrival in Bermuda. If you arrive at 4 a.m. in the morning, you probably won't be tested until the next morning. The test results are generally take about 24 hours to be returned, depending on time of arrival. Once you've received a negative test result in Bermuda, your first test result, this is making sure that you've already have your pre-test and your travel authorization. After your negative first test result, within that 24 hours, you should get your result. Then you are free to roam about Bermuda. Social distancing, you have to monitor your temperature and various other protocols, but you are then no longer in quarantine on the vessel. Until you receive your first negative test result in Bermuda, you're quarantined to your vessel. Now, supposing you don't have a pre-test prior to coming to Bermuda and you haven't completed the travel authorization process, it's a mandatory 14-day quarantine. So it's very important that you do the pre-test. Regarding that 14-day quarantine, you are given credit for time at sea. So if you're at sea for 6 days, you'll be 6 days less of that quarantine on arrival in Bermuda. But if you do want to spend some time really on land in Bermuda and enjoying our beautiful island, it's best to follow the travel authorization process, get a pre-test, which has to be done 7 days prior to departure from your port, then test on arrival. Then you'll be cleared to enjoy Bermuda. You will then be tested again on days 4, day 7, and day 14. Now, you don't have to stay that entire time. You're free to leave at any point in that process. They ask you to anchor what's called Powder Hole, which would be basically due south of Ordnance Island, which would be to the west of what's called Hen Island. Those that have sailed to Bermuda before, Bermuda radio is always in communication with all vessels. Make sure your radio's on channel 16. They'll probably move you to channel 27 for communication, and they'll advise you on when to proceed to the customs dock, which is on the corner of Ordnance Island, on the northeast corner of Ordnance Island. That's correct. So we're on the southern side of Ordnance Island, the old cruise ship terminal building, Bermuda Yacht Services. We manage the docks for the town. So once vessels are clear and allowed to leave the vessel, they're more than welcome to anchor on the town docks or more on the town docks. We're directly adjacent to our office, and come in and use our facilities where we can at least give you some internet, some free Wi-Fi, so communicate with families, etc. The only thing I didn't mention, which is another option completely, which we have had vessels use, is the fact that if you arrive and you absolutely have no intention of getting off the vessel and you're happy just to ride out some weather and you're going to leave, you don't have to get tested at all, as long as you're not planning to leave the vessel. So you don't have to get tested on day 1 or 4 or 8 or anything, long as you stay in quarantine in Bermuda. And they desperately need some supplies. We can also arrange for contactless delivery, where even if they're not permitted to leave the vessel and go ashore, we can get permission for them to come in potentially by tender and pick up some provisions or something if they're desperate. We won't be able to arrange for mechanics and things like that until the vessel is completely clear of quarantine. But in the quarantine, during the quarantine process, we can at least facilitate with provisions if required.
So having Bermuda allow you to come in and drop the hook in quarantine to get out of weather or to fix something is extremely helpful. It's a rest area in the middle of the Atlantic that can be used even if you don't need provisions or to go ashore.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Last year, of course, we in the Caribbean, a lot of islands just shut down and didn't want to let you in no matter what happened. Bermuda, since it's way out there in the middle of the ocean, even at the height of COVID, they know they're the only island in the area. So they would let boats come in, drop anchor, rest, bring them something if they needed to. But you can, if you were planning to not stop in Bermuda, didn't fill out any paperwork, but if you're tired or you need something or have a repair, you can pull in. They will not deny you entry. Our next video is about St. Martin, and after we've seen that video in St. Martin, we will talk about a normal year heading down and our recommendations for this year and what we're doing a little bit above and beyond what the protocols are, just because we also are doing the protocols, of course, to keep the people in St. Martin down in the Caribbean safe, but also our own crew while we're out at sea.
Good afternoon. We're very excited about the season coming up. As you know, the yachting and marine industry for St. Martin is close family. We are a friend to the yachting and the marine industry. We've been for the last months working very close with the marine trades and government, of course, together setting protocols that welcomes and makes this as effective and efficient as possible for this industry. We have improved on a lot of different guidelines, I believe, and we just want to have that as Director of Tourism. We want to welcome everybody back and letting you know that this will be a safe haven with responsible protocols, but at the same time accommodating the industry. So we're very excited for the season and we're ready for it, public and private sector.
Years past, you know, how easy it has been for people to come to the welcoming and friendly island of St. Martin. This year, of course, there's been a lot of confusion because of COVID, and we just want to let any sailors that are planning to come down from the United States what the procedure will be for arrival in St. Martin, what they need to do beforehand, maybe online, and then when they arrive. So Narena, if you'd like to start off, that'd be great.
Sure, I'm happy to start. So first of all, my name is Narena Edelman. I am a private business owner on St. Martin. I actually association and also on the board. So with the St. Martin Marine Trades Association of St. Martin, we have worked quite diligently since the outbreak of COVID last winter, so in March. We have worked very closely with government in an attempt to establish protocols that are consistent and easy to understand. Is the following. All flight arrivals are subject to pre-arrival COVID testing. So that is, St. Martin is basically open to everyone from all over the world to our commercial airport, but an RT-PCR test must be taken within 120 hours of the last leg of your journey, is the way that the rule is. And just to put it out there, I don't know if we can add a graphic, but there is a website that goes over those rules, which is stmartinentry.com. And I guess we can spell that out later, but stmartinentry.com, where all of the specific regulations as they apply to coming on island are clearly spelled out. And every arriving traveler must also submit an electronic authorization. So it's just a little form that says who you are, where you're coming from, some basic biographical information about you. If you arrive with that negative test, you submit it as air travelers will do. And there you come in, you do your clearance, and there is no quarantine. You're immediately free to circulate with the population. The option two, for those who are not able to get pre-departure COVID tests, would be to arrive into St. Martin, to have a test within 24 hours of arrival that will be organized, and Brian will be talking more about that in a moment, but we have testing capacity on island. And you would need to remain in quarantine on board until you have the results of that COVID test, which my experience thus far, we are getting results within 24 hours. So you're looking at about a 48-hour quarantine, arriving, getting a test, getting the results. Assuming the results are negative, you're free to circulate. We are really looking forward to welcoming all vessels back this season. I think a lot of people are going to be seeking warmth because in this crazy time, frankly, to be in a sunny place where we can spend the majority of our time outside is very attractive. And we're doing everything we can to open and keep ourselves, our own population, as well as our visitors safe.
So what I want to make a point of is that what IGY is doing is a private donation to the St. Martin Laboratory Services, and then everything is going to be run by them under the protocols and procedures put in place by government. So, okay? So that's the first statement. And secondly, what we're really trying to do from IGY's point of make sure adequate tests available for the maritime industry specifically, but our goal is to try to be able to get a rapid response for you. So we're shooting for 3-4 hours type response, but definitely within 24 hours, where in some cases, if there's a backlog in the normal government ones, you may find that to be a little bit longer.
Is there a fee for this testing?
Sure. Yes, there will be a fee, and and that is yet to be determined. It will be consistent with what's being done in other islands and all that. Right now, the base testing center will be set up at the Yacht Club Ile de Sol, and then we've recently had discussions with the Marine Trades Association to look into setting up a secondary one.
The understanding that most people that are planning to come to St. Martin will test within the 5 days, so we will not have to worry about getting retested. But I'm more wanting to, in our webinar, let people know, such as like the Salty Dog, they're planning to go straight to Antigua. I would like to let them know that why pass by St. Martin if you need to supply, get repairs done, but they might not have made plans to visit St. Martin. I'm assuming they're all going to still test before they leave, but if they just show up with a test and they haven't filled out any of the government forms beforehand they're arriving, basically what I'm wanting to do is, can people come in if they've been tested but haven't filled out any paperwork?
to answer your question, essentially, I think if you arrive in St. Martin with the negative test that is done within the time frame, then the ideal would be to submit your online form at the website stmartinentry.com. You will get back within about, well, I don't know exactly, but I think within minutes or hours, basically an authorization to enter St. Martin. And I think that once you have that authorization with your negative result, then the skipper, I don't think there's any reason for multiple people to go, but the skipper could go with passports for the crew to clear in Simpson Bay, as you've done traditionally.
And also I think we have some advantages, like for example, so far they're not requiring retesting. So as soon as you test and you're clear and you can come onto the island, you can stay as long as you want. You don't have to be retested. And again, we have some examples of those low-risk countries that are on there. But Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent. There's several Caribbean islands that are on the low-risk category. And you can basically, in theory, depart from St. Martin, go to those islands. Those islands might require a test. So you may have to do a test in St. Martin when you leave to go there, but St. Martin will not require you to retest when you come back here, once you've only been to a low-risk country.
Now, frankly,
Okay.
all of the Caribbean islands should get together, in my view, and agree on a low-risk measure and have a bubble. That would benefit the entire Caribbean, but so far that hasn't happened. So we will keep you posted. What I can say is that St. Martin has its standards that it is applying. So if you want to go to a CARICOM country, we can get you tested and we can get you there. And then if that country is low risk, you can come back without having to retest.
That's good. Okay. That's a good bullet point.
To sort of help, just use an example, and we're going a little bit beyond what the protocols are. But I always leave. I've left every year since 1998 from Newport. We leave with a small fleet of swans. We only have 3 this year, and I am not doing the official NARC rally. But with so much uncertainty, I didn't want to invite and be responsible for a lot more boats. Certainly any boats that want to leave in our same weather window will be allowed. But we have 3 swans. We have 17 crew flying in from different parts of the country, and we are going to ask them also to test before they even travel to the boat. As many of us know, in the United States, certain states even require quarantine when you first come to that state. So if any of you have crew coming from somewhere else, you might want to ask them to test before they get on the plane to come visit. Then we're all going to gather in Newport, and we're there for 3 or 4 days, and we're going to test again. So that's the test that we will have before we leave for Bermuda. So we have always stopped in Bermuda on the way south. I sort of have a saying that God put Bermuda there for sailors heading south, and it's sin not to stop. And our thinking on that is 2 things. First, it's very hard to get a 7, 8, 9 day weather window. By breaking up the trip from the United States down to the Caribbean, you're doing it in 4 or 5 day first leg, maybe 5, 6 days second leg, much easier to get weather windows. Plus, it's also a good place to reprovision, stop, etc. Which means with another 6 to 7 days down to St. Martin, we will have more than 14 days and be tested 3 times before we get to the Caribbean. So we're doing this not only to make sure that when we depart, everybody will be safe. And again, we go with 5, 6, 7 people on board. So you wouldn't want to leave and have one person get sick on the way. So that prevents that situation. If you're going with much smaller crews, maybe you don't have to do that first test the week before arrival. But certainly that test before you depart, whether you go by plane or boat, you're certainly going to have to do that test. Now, as many of us know, the further south you go, the less advantageous the winds are as you go. The trade winds, as we get down at least halfway or usually halfway down to the Caribbean, are going to come out of the east and southeast. So if you leave from Lunenburg or Newport, of course, you can always pick your weather on departure. So we wait for a front to go by, get a nice northerly breeze, really just 2 days to the stream. If you leave from the Chesapeake, which is a fine place to leave from, and highly recommended if you're living aboard your boat. So even from there, you still have the option to go to Bermuda or straight shot. And we always recommend Bermuda, and I have delivered boats from the Chesapeake down to the Caribbean. And if you want to sail, you really want to head to a waypoint near Bermuda to get in your easterly early, so that from Bermuda down, you get down so you can almost reach down. If you try and go straight shot, again, you can't get a 7, 8, 9 day weather window. And that's why you often see a lot of boats just loaded up with a lot of fuel to get from the Chesapeake straight on down to the Caribbean. And now with the British Virgin Islands not open, you still have another 100, 150 miles further east to get to. So by starting from Newport, you certainly save 200, 250 miles of easting and also get across the stream 2 days rather than 1 day. Of course, that's one of the advantages of from the Chesapeake. You can get the stream behind you early on. But if you are sailing shorthanded or are worried about that, again, Joan mentioned early on about this crew network that we have, and it's a free service for free crew, and we get crew for anybody going anywhere, and it's a nice, efficient system. All you have to do is contact us with your crew needs. We can often get crew on short notice because, again, it's an efficient system where we have hundreds of members. We just type up a crew request, email it to them, and you get responses very quickly. So it's a nice option to add more people. So again, we're a proponent of just helping people in any way how to get south. You do have options on ways to go. Lots of information out there in groups, which is great. So if anybody needs help crew-wise. Well, just one more comment I'd like to make. And people say, you know, why do we always go to St. Martin? And for us, we need an island that's very easy to fly in and out of. So everybody knows St. Martin is a major port. I just booked my flight home today, direct flight home for $201. So it's a very easy island to get to and from. They also have great marine services there. Everybody knows Budget Marine. Well, the Budget Marine, the first one is in St. Martin, and the one there is 2 stories and is bigger, as big as any mega West Marine that we have in the States. It's also a duty-free island. There is no tax on boat parts. There's no tax on food or anything. So we almost say it's cheaper to eat out than it is to buy food and eat on board. There's so many places. But it just really has a wealth of marine services. And what IGY Marina has always done for our rally, and we are not doing a rally this year, but they are giving 2 free days and 10% off to any boat that visits from the United States and say they saw this webinar, or the 7 Seas Cruising Association members, or probably my name, Hank Schmidt, and you'll get the 2 free days and 10% off as long as you stay there. So if you want to, you know, like I do, bring my boat down and then fly back for Thanksgiving and Christmas and go back in January, it's 10% off for the 2.5 months. It also is an island that is duty-free as far as carrying in parts. So for many reasons, it's a very good place, especially at the end of a long passage. If you need to make repairs, if you need to reprovision, or if you need to make a crew change, it's just a very nice place. And it is a good place to base out of for going to other places as well. So they did want me to make sure I extended that offer to anybody, just not folks in our NOC rally this year for those discounts. So it is a great place. So again, it is going to be a challenging year. I think if you're planning to go down and fly back and forth and try and hit lots of islands, see no reason to not go down. Again, usually when there are more challenges, the rewards are that much better. You'll have a much bigger story of what you did during the 2nd season of COVID. So I do encourage you to go if you've been planning for a long time and don't wait another year.
Well, thanks, Hank. When Hank and I began putting this webinar together, I began doing some research, just as I would if it was going to be a magazine article. And I'll share with you some of the things I've discovered. A lot of the information is still in flux, changing, and will change as infection rates in the islands rise and fall. So I asked myself, if I was taking a boat south to the islands this fall, what would I want to know and when would I want to know it? And when would I make the decision that it was safe to depart my home here in Maine for a 2,000-mile offshore voyage to the islands in the Caribbean? Is there enough time even now to get the boat ready, find a crew, get everyone tested, buy provisions, and get the boat down to Newport for a late October departure? And I want to be confident that there would be an island destination down there that would welcome me and my crew when we got there. Bermuda, at least from Newport or the Chesapeake, are obvious first choices because their entry protocols into Bermuda are what I would expect and want for myself and my crew. Once in the Caribbean, what islands are accepting yachts and crews, which islands have airports and flights out to get my crew home. The first of the islands are the U.S. Virgin Islands, and they're open with restrictions. All yachts, even those arriving directly from the United States, now need to clear in. This is a change in pre-COVID times when you didn't need to clear in if you were coming from the U.S. mainland without a stop in Bermuda or other islands. Crews need to be tested on arrival now. And it means taking a taxi cab from Red Hook or from Charlotte to a medical facility. Joan and I have been researching prices for this service and where the government wants you to park your boat in quarantine.
Now, the Virgin Islands are a little bit different. You'll use Rome when you get there. That's how you'll check in. And you can get a same-day test at either the lab up by the hospital by the harbor in Charlotte Amalie or at Red Hook. I would suggest going to Red Hook and anchoring there because it's at Red Hook that you can do the same-day test. Then you don't have to quarantine. They will not take a test from the United States unless it's within 5 days of arrival. There's no way that you can really make it in 5 days. So you do the test before you leave just for safety's sake, so you know your crew's okay. You could stop at the Virgin Islands, get a same-day test.
Noonsite will have the latest protocols for all arriving yachts. We hear that the BVI is also not opening until December 1st, so that puts it out of the ballpark. Flights back to the States for crews are available from the U.S. Virgin Islands and also from St. Martin and other islands further south. For those of you that are planning on touring through the Caribbean islands, at least the Eastern Caribbean, you've all heard what St. Martin is offering, their opening and their protocols. There's been a lot of talk of this bubble, the CARICOM bubble. The English-speaking islands have got together for a special meeting in mid-September. And at that meeting, the heads of the governments agreed that travelers, and that would include yacht crews and cruising yachts, traveling between the islands within the bubble would be allowed to entry in without being subject to a PCR pre-test, not having to undergo quarantine restrictions. Travelers may be subject to screening and testing on arrival. Travelers should have resided within a bubble country and not travel to another country or outside the bubble for at least 14 days prior to travel. So as of September 22nd, the bubble included Antigua and Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is the prime cruising ground for most people heading to the Eastern Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis are still considering their options. Customs and immigration procedures remain the same as they always have, but COVID testing may change from island to island and from time to time. Proper clearing in is also required, as you will need your clearing out paperwork to make sure you can get into the next island. Antigua wants you to use the EC Clear software online to complete the paperwork before you land. What's not in the bubble is the French islands, and they have their own bubble. Arriving yachts from other islands must show proof of negative PRC tests made less than 72 hours prior to arrival. A pre-arrival form and test results need to be sent electronically to the authorities 24 hours before arrival. Now, no one wants to be stuck in quarantine on their boats for 14 days, so make sure you arrive with the proper paperwork. Now, where do we find all this information? Noonsite. Here's the page that provides their specific information. All of the islands are listed, and all you need to do is press on the button that says biosecurity, and they'll take you to the latest protocols. Here's one such page from St. Lucia. IG Wise Marina can provide on-board testing with your boat tied to the dock, and you can click on that when you get to that site. There are various Facebook nets within the Caribbean. They also have information, some of it unreliable, fake news. Seven Seas Cruising Association, I'm sure, will pass along information to its membership. I wish I could be more helpful with information that's more reliable, but things are changing. I just received this from a yacht captain friend in Bequia, and he writes, the situation here changes constantly. I asked on the St. Martin Cruisers Group net about sailing between French islands. I need to go to Martinique and then to St. Martin. All was okay until last week. Now Guadeloupe is closing its borders as they've had a big spike in COVID-19. I was told one has to be in Martinique a minimum of 15 days before they can go to another island in the French bubble. And please, don't cheat the system. One case of infection that leads back to a yacht crew, and we're all in quarantine for the season. Hank, that covers my research. Anything you want to pass along, or should we go right to questions now?
A screenshot that we kept talking about that we'd put up so people can write down anything they need or take a picture. So you can see the different links for both Bermuda, St. Martin, certainly offshore passenger opportunities, and we have Noonsite on there too, which I don't think anybody doesn't know about. But Noonsite, again, is the best for the latest news. So we'll be looking for the SSCA flags throughout the Caribbean, and if anybody sees my boat or me out there, please come over and say hi. David, do you have any closing words?
I can't think of a better place to social distance than on my boat anchored in Five Islands Bay in Antigua. I just wish we had more concrete, reliable information to pass along, but we'll keep following up, Joan and I and the rest of the people on the internet sites, so that it'll be interesting to put all this together in an article later on about how it all transpired. And we're moving forward, and that's the important thing, is that the islands are all trying to cooperate so that they are not turning their back on their cruising community.
Yes, and a good time for the sailing community, all of us also, to work together to pass on information and help each other out there. So looking forward to seeing you out there. And if anybody has any questions, whether it's about crew or sailing down that way, please feel free to call or email me anytime. I do this full time and have been for a long time, and always love talking about sailing and helping people make successful passages.